All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And greetings all. Kim, you can see, is in her spot.
Kim, how are you?
At the News Central Desk to cover all breaking news of the moment. And I am at my assigned position, and Tony's at his assigned position.
Thanks, Tony.
We have a lot today. I'll get to it. I was just watching Nikki Maduro's show. She does a show called The Nikki Maduro Show. And they were talking about Girl Scout cookies.
Oh, Girl Scout cookies.
I didn't realize that they were a controversial thing, but I guess they are. There's a lot. I mean, at the end of the conversation with Kim about the Girl Scout cookies, I thought, oh my God, I didn't realize how fraught with issues parking yourself in front of a grocery store and pitching cookies could be. But apparently it is. So.
Tony just showed me cookies he bought yesterday that I have never seen before.
Yeah. Oh, really? What kind are those, Tony? Yeah.
They're called Toast Yays.
And they have something in the middle, Toast Yay?
No, it's not in the middle. It's just on one side of it. One side has the
cream cheese or something? Or
Nah, it's like an icing. It was good.
I have never seen that before.
Dipped in delicious icing. Oh, that's very...
Wow.
How exciting. Well,
kind of big, whatever.
It's
I mean,
Girl
science
Scout
is a great
season.
thing, and what they've done with Girl Scout cookies is super exciting. Yeah. That has to be healthy. It really does. I'm sure that once the information is released on the research from Dr. Emil Schoenhauer, the third, I'm sure he will release something that will set you free when it comes to inhaling those. The Thin Mints, I could eat a whole box in one setting.
Yeah.
In just one, just at one time. The problem was that I would eat a whole box in one sitting.
Yeah.
In other words, I was not able to restrain myself. I do have a problem with the temptation thing. You know, if you put, I used to take cookies and I'd eat a few of them. And then I would literally throw the other cookies in the trash so that they would make contact with the rest of the garbage. Right. Otherwise, I would eat them all. I mean, that's how effed up But I mean, honestly, is this another classic Mark Thompson time waster? Asks Ricky O'Bear. Ricky with a very fine question, but I do resent it. I resent it, and yet I enjoy it. Yeah. I can eat a lot of things in one sitting, says Nitwan. It's true. It's true. Everybody's got their thing, you know, that you just as soon throw in the garbage. Maybe it's cigarettes, you know. But I'm telling you, man, those, you get those cookies in the house, and I cannot resist. I like the Toast Yays.
Yeah.
I got some last year in SoCal. Not sure if they're available in the Bay Area or not, says Sandy.
I have never seen them, and I spent some years selling Girl Scout cookies and never seen them here. But Andrea says those have been sold for a few years, not in the Bay Area, closest in Santa Cruz and Tracy. So you're looking for the Toast Gays. Yeah.
The fact that they know that,
I know.
They're
that's very impressive.
Cookies.
It really is impressive. Have to
Today
say
on the Mark Thompson Show Cookie Tracker.
Yeah, the cookie knowledge
the regional
with
breakdown
our crowd is really quite impressive. I wouldn't have thought it to be the case, but I guess everybody needs to know where their cookies are. And take that any way you want.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I just want to give you a sense of what's coming up on the show today. I want to touch on so many things, and we will. I'll start with the political stuff, and as mentioned, and as you may have seen advertised, Taylor Swift. I mean, it seems like a crazy thing on some level, like, oh, Mark, really? It's some, pop star actually influences, pop star influencing the culture. Whenever you want to sell a product, who do you get? You get Travis Kelce, you get Patrick Mahomes, you get all of these guys to show up in commercials, right?
Yeah.
They show up because people pay attention to celebrities. Similarly, pop stars and other people who are fairly high profile influence some, perhaps wield some political power. Taylor Swift may be one of them. We'll get to that in a second. I have a great Law and Disorder, which includes an Olympic scandal that is finally put to bed, a ruling in a Monsanto case that shouldn't even exist. This weed killer shouldn't even exist anymore, and it does. We know how that changed during the last administration. And the latest in the GOP, that it may be okay to ignore the Supreme Court. I mean, it's really wild to think that that could be a thing, but it is. Meantime, in the second hour, David Cay Johnston, the Pulitzer Prize winner, Snoop is in love with Trump. You have Taylor on one side and Snoop on the other. I'll give you some of the details on that, but more to the point, when it comes to David Cay Johnston, we'll talk about the cases that are still before the courts and the adjudication of the other Trump issues, as well as the payout to E. Jean Carroll. All of that will happen. And I'll even have, if there's time, a Stories from the Sky. So there's a lot going on today. And
The Mark Thompson Show.
That doesn't even include what I sent Tony. Now, Tony, I sent you, when I send this stuff, I'm working all the time for this show, everyone. I am. All hours of the day and night, as is Kim.
That's kind of how I feel, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just saying that I push Tony a lot of stuff, and I don't even remember what I've pushed him. But at the moment, I'm thinking we need to do this tomorrow on the show. What did I push you, Tony?
You said Florida GOP Congressman Salazar you sent me last night.
Oh, that's some good stuff right there.
Yeah, that's when she's busted live on the air. Yeah, let's run that. That's pretty strong. But I just want to see what else is on the menu. God, my hair is all out of control. I didn't even really...
it's been a rough morning at the Thompson house.
I didn't really deal with it, so it's just...
That's what happens when you're digging in the trash for Girl Scout cookies.
That is true. That is true. I am...
What?
I'm out there. there. I'll find them. But... so we'll see Salazar. What was the other thing, Tony, please? Can't remember.
Sorry, hold on one second. Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah.
In addition to other nominees.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, I just...
Whoever is producing this thing
I don't know.
has no idea what they're doing.
I send the stuff to him, and he's...
Yeah, you sent me something about E. Jean Carroll, so...
It's
it was about the Biden sees tougher border measures and tries to fend off Trump attacks.
Okay. All right. Settle down. I'm taking charge of this.
I'm just... You asked.
I know.
I'm digging through emails right now.
I know. No, it's true. You didn't do anything wrong.
Home.
What kind of show is this?
I'm just a...
No.
All right, let's run the cell. Let me just explain. You don't need to know much. You'll simply enjoy this because what's happening, and it's true in American politics, and it's been true in American politics for a while, but boy, there's just a real sense of it now. You vote against something for political reasons only. You know it's good for your district. You know it'll help the people who are your constituents, and still you vote against it. Why? Because you're GOP strong, and it was introduced by Democrats and Joe Biden, and that's why I'm voting against this, in this case, infrastructure bill. So you vote against it. You scream about how it's from evil Joe Biden, and then you fill in all of the talking points of the day. But the bill passes. And in your district, the infrastructure money flows in, and it helps people in your district, and you realize it's something that you can peacock about. Things are better in your district because of all this federal money and these federal programs. So you begin to peacock about it, even though you voted against it. And everything's fine until you get called out on it on live TV. Here we go.
positive. $40 million that I brought, and let's look at the.
Last month, you were at FIU and you presented a check for $650,000 to help small businesses at FIU. But you voted against the bill that gave the money that you then signed a check for and handed and had a photo op, the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2023, right? You voted against that bill.
Right now, you have to give me more details, but I do know that every time I have an opportunity to bring money to my constituents, I do so. I just did $400,000. But look,
but you voted against the Chips and Science Act, right?
Listen, right now I need to ask my staff. But what do we look at the $40 million that I have brought to this community? Aren't you proud of me? Aren't you proud of the $40 million that I brought?
But how
Aren't
much?
you proud that I wrote the Dignity Act? Haven't I? Let's talk about the Americas Act.
Wait a second. Let me 1 second.
Tell me.
The money that you talk about, the $40 million that you bring back to the district, sometimes that money comes from bills that you voted against. You voted against the CHIPS Act, and yet you praise the fact that the South Florida Climate Resilience Tech Hub is going to be started in Miami, right? You voted against the infrastructure bill, and you talk about all the money that comes back to the airport. So at the same time that you're taking credit for the money that you bring back to the district, in Washington, you're voting against these projects on party line votes.
Listen, that was, I think, last cycle. I cannot really remember right now, but let's look at the Americas Act, which is what I'm going to, which is
so
what I would like.
You don't want to explain why you vote
really
against
cannot.
things.
I mean, right now, and I'm not trying to be a politician, there's so many bills that I've introduced that I know that many of them.
These are bills that you voted against.
That I understand. But it's okay. Sometimes I vote and sometimes I don't. But let's look at the positive. Let's look at the $40 million that I brought, and let's look at the.
Yeah, so there you go.
I love it. Aren't you proud of me? Aren't you proud of me? Ugh.
I mean, I'm not trying to be a politician here. You're doing the most politician thing you can possibly do. It's utter insanity, but you'd like to see more of that kind of journalism, honestly, going on.
It was
you
so
just
good.
don't see it much. And then that moment can exist, as it does here today, in something with a virality that might allow others to see it. But it's pretty amazing, the level of deniability. And of course, the thing, and we'll talk to David Cay Johnston about this as well, the thing that's playing out now in very high profile ways is the clear partisan nature of the border deal. They've worked to broker a deal on the border. The border has issues. Everybody agrees on that. But as we've noted, the GOP memo from Donald Trump, who's the leader of the Republican Party now, is I don't want a deal on the border. I'm running on the border. If you guys make a bipartisan deal on the border and you implement some of these border strategies, it hurts my ability to run on that issue. And so the GOP, with fealty to Trump, I think afraid of Trump, scared of Trump, they're actually pursuing that notion that they should back away, essentially, from a bipartisan border deal. So that's what's happening there. And it's just because we're talking about the border, let me just give you 30 more seconds to say that, Joe Biden has actually embraced some of the very things that were implemented by the last administration under Donald Trump. The Remain in Mexico stuff. That is something that appears to be getting some traction. And this stuff is not getting much newsprint, I'll just say it, meaning much media oxygen, but it is there. In other words, some of the tough border policies to which the GOP has claimed the Democrats are never implementing are being implemented. They're just not getting any publicity. And again, I think the Democrats are trying to have it both ways, which is one of the reasons they're not publicizing the fact that some of these very strategies that were implemented by the last administration are being implemented by this administration. But this is a real issue for Joe Biden. He ought to embrace it, and I think he ought to make this deal, and I think he wants to make this deal with the GOP. Give them a lot of these border policies. They're not bad, many of them. Get that money for more immigration judges. Get that money for more processing. And the Remain in Mexico policy seems to be working for your administration. You ought to not only do it, you ought to advertise the fact that you're doing it. Here's the statement from the White House from Joe Biden on the bipartisan Senate border security negotiations. Do you want to blow up that one part? It would give, I can't read it from the screen, but anyway, there are statements from the White House. There it is. It would give me as president a new emergency authority to shut down the border when it becomes overwhelmed. And if given that authority, I would use it the day I sign the bill into law. Further, Congress needs to finally provide the funding I requested in October to secure the border. This includes an additional 1,300 Border Patrol agents, 375 immigration judges, 1,600 asylum officers, and over 100 cutting-edge inspection machines to help detect and stop fentanyl at our southwest border. So, I mean, that's pretty solid, you know, as an ask. And again, I think, you know, now everything's mired in politics. And this House, which is what you need in terms of appropriating money, they are really dug in. So that's the latest on that. We'll ask David Cay Johnston about that as well. So
The Mark Thompson Show.
It is true that Taylor Swift actually wields power. The endorsement from Taylor Swift means something. Now, I would think we should all be forgiven for not following exactly where Taylor Swift endorsements have ended up to this point. She's not been politically active particularly, but she has been outspoken, for example, on, there she is at a KC game. She has been outspoken on women's reproductive rights, and that's something that I think can be applauded. And now, might she endorse one of the two likely candidates for president? I can't imagine her doing it. I just don't see the upside. But she is being courted by the Joe Biden people, you know. And if Taylor Swift could endorse Donald Trump or Joe Biden, and I mean, given her position on reproductive rights, I would imagine it would be Joe Biden and not Donald Trump.
Well, given her position on being kind and not bullying people, yeah, she's definitely not a Trumper.
It might make a difference. So, a new strategies poll from Redfield and Winton Strategies, this came out over the weekend. It found that 18% of respondents said that Swift's endorsement made them, quote, more likely or, quote, significantly more likely to vote for that candidate. That said, 17% said her endorsement would make them less likely to vote for that candidate, while 55% said it would have no impact. They had a sample size of 1,500 eligible voters in that poll. So even as it suggested that a Swift endorsement would be countered by a negative reaction, it sort of suggests also that it would be particularly motivating to younger voters. And that's a key voting bloc for the Biden campaign. There's a concern, as you're aware, and we've noted it here before, that 18 to 34 demographic for Democrats is being lost. Now, look, this is one poll and Biden campaign with Lady Gaga, you'll remember, and in the final days of 2020. So this idea of getting luminaries on stage, that's not a new one at all, right? Trump has surrounded himself with whoever he can find, you know, the Scott Bayos, the Kid Rocks of the world.
God.
But Taylor Swift is having a moment. She was all over that AFC championship coverage. And when I say all over, you know, they did an actual time they ran the time essentially that she's on screen against the rate. She was on screen 25 seconds. So it's not, I mean, but our perception of Taylor Swift on screen.
Longer.
Yeah. Seems
At
so much.
one point, she looked up at the camera, realized she's on screen again, and mouthed the words, "Please go away."
Yeah.
Please go away. Like, leave me alone. She doesn't want to do that either. But I will say that Taylor Swift fans, Swifties, are incredibly loyal to her. And so if she endorses a candidate, I mean, she has to be very careful because she doesn't want to alienate people. But also, I would say that it's probably, I don't know, it seems like more people would really consider what she has to say because they're so loyal to her already.
Taylor Swift is a major figure in America and worldwide. She has, you know, at one point she had all top 10 recordings in the top 10 Billboard. They were all her. How many, here's the trivia question, how many Instagram followers does Taylor Swift have? How many Instagram followers does Taylor Swift have? She's bigger than Elvis. She's cuter than Elvis. Elvis was cute. At the height of his cuteness, he was pretty cute. Maybe, you know. Champagne says 200 million. Anybody want to put some of these up on screen? Or 45 million says Pauline. A billion says Franco. Really, buddy? Seriously, really a billion? Come on.
I would say, yeah. I'd go with Debbie. 10 million, probably.
10 million. Trevor Starr in Hollywood said 11,780. 400 million. Jeez, Randy, they're pulling these numbers just out of the air. How many Instagram followers does Taylor Swift have? Yeah, people who bet, Randy, if you're guessing 400 million, then you're not on Instagram much. I mean, 400 million is, what are you kidding? Randy, how many people live in America? You think 400 million followers are on? Come on, pal. Let's, if you're not going to make these guesses, if you're not going to take this seriously, I'm going to close this whole game down. I don't know, Kim.
Why are you yelling?
800 million. All right, you know, guys, I just will not. Wait a minute. Put Mary's guess up there, Kim, if you would, please. 236 million.
Wow.
I'm going to give it to Mary. 280 million is the actual answer.
Kidding me? Wow.
She has 280 million Instagram followers.
That is wild.
She's encouraged fans to register to vote. Mm-hmm. That was something that encouraged people to the point that there was an immediate uptick in tens of thousands of new registrations. There it is. You can see Tony's got it up there. It was the nonpartisan nonprofit vote.org that she directed her fans to click on, and that recorded more than 35,000 registrations as a result of those click-throughs. So that's nonpartisan. She's just getting people to be more involved. But, you know, she's taking backlash from the right. Vivek Ramaswamy suggests that there's a conspiracy theory that the Super Bowl is going to be rigged to raise Taylor Swift's profile and help Biden.
Whatever.
How can you raise Taylor Swift's profile, okay, Vivek? I just told you she's got 280 million followers on Instagram. She had all of the top 10 recordings on Billboard. She's a worldwide sensation. You think she needs the Super Bowl to raise her profile and then somehow all to help Biden? Here it is. Vivek Ramaswamy says on Twitter or X, I wonder who's going to win the Super Bowl next month, and I wonder if there's a major presidential endorsement coming from an artificially culturally propped up couple this fall. Just some wild speculation over here. Let's see how it ages over the next 8 months. God, I hate that guy more every day. Hate is a big word, but he is really, you know, that is just, it's just awful. It really is awful. But Yeah, I like that he used the word speculation.
That's pure speculation.
Right. All right. Anyway, that's the latest on Taylor. She's the real thing.
Yeah.
And an endorsement of Joe Biden would matter. Now, as Kim has said, I think it's implied where her loyalties are. But that said, if she were to come out, it might matter. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
That's the latest on that with Taylor. Well, I've got Law and Disorder that has Olympics news. I have Monsanto in Law and Disorder. I still wanted to get to marijuana. I teased yesterday that I would go through a little bit of whether marijuana legalization in California has helped or hurt and how life has changed after marijuana legalization. So I may still do that. Do I have time to do that, Kim, in the next half hour?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Yeah, let's get you some. And also, I will touch on are edibles safer than smoking? So if you're interested in that kind of.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Okay. We'll get to that. Smash the like button, if you will. We try to give you a little bit of politics
Smash
and
it
other
with your
stuff.
iron rod.
We don't just do politics. We try to do a lot of other stuff as well. But definitely, we're drawn to what's making news. So, David Cay Johnston in the next hour. Kim's news, and we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, I'm Kim McAllister on the Mark Thompson Show, and this report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. First, let's talk about efforts to impeach the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas over his handling of the border crisis, and they are ramping up. The Republican-led House Homeland Security Committee is now marking up articles of impeachment against the secretary today. A vote on the House floor could come as soon as next week. The dignified transfer of soldiers killed in a drone strike in Jordan will be attended by President Biden. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby telling reporters that President Biden spoke with the families of the 3 fallen service members. That happened today. Kirby said the president expressed how proud the nation is of their service. The trial of the mother of the Michigan Oxford High School shooter continues today with more testimony now. This is Jennifer Crumbley, the accused, facing charges including involuntary manslaughter and the deaths of 4 students and the wounding of 7 others. Witnesses on the stand today include the dean of students at the high school at the time of the shooting and Jennifer Crumbley's former boss as well. So this trial continues. Have you heard about what is going on with Cori Bush? Yeah, I have a picture of her, and here it is. Cori Bush, the Justice Department now investigating her for campaign spending on security services. The outspoken squad member, who's been at the forefront of the defund the police movement, today confirmed the investigation. She denied any wrongdoing and said her campaign is fully cooperating. She said she used campaign funds as permissible to pay for security, but she did not use any federal tax dollars. So, Cori Bush now under investigation. We talked earlier on the Mark Thompson Show about this, not necessarily new, but newly approved way by the Supreme Court anyway to do executions in the United States. Well, now Nebraska is considering becoming the 4th state to use nitrogen hypoxia as capital punishment. Already, Alabama, Oklahoma, and Mississippi are the only states that have legalized the execution. So this would become Alabama, Oklahoma, Mississippi, and now possibly Nebraska as well. Here is a story. I am telling you what, in the "this is not nearly punishment enough" file, let's talk about what happened. Let's talk about
a big file.
Yeah, it's a very big file. Let's talk about what happened with this FedEx driver, all right? Because this guy, apparently, he's avoided prison even after dumping hundreds and hundreds of packages into a ravine. Now, why? What happened? This is a former Alabama FedEx delivery driver who dumped hundreds of packages, tens of thousands of dollars worth of FedEx packages in this ravine in Alabama in 2021. It was November, so a lot of these are holiday packages, right?
Oh, no.
This guy, 24 years old, DeAndre Charleston, he's now a former FedEx delivery person. He pleaded guilty after the missing packages were found. More than 450 FedEx customers were reportedly affected by his decision to dump their packages in the woods.
Wow.
That's not fake.
Mean,
that's real.
Chucked them in the woods like he didn't care. Well, now he's.
Why would he do that? That's just he dumps them and he doesn't have to deliver them? Is that the reason?
Apparently a little bit lazy. These packages estimated at a total value of $25,000 at least.
I've received a lot of positive letters.
Well,
247 of them were in such unidentifiable condition that they didn't have names on them anymore. They'd been out in the rain and the snow, what have you.
Wow.
Now
That's brutal.
He gets his prison sentence. Are you ready for this? He's given a 1-year suspended sentence, 2 years unsupervised probation, and he has to pay a $655 fine.
That is despicable. That really is.
What?
Yeah, it's despicable.
He pleaded guilty to 1 count of 4th-degree theft of property. Yeah. All the other charges against him were dismissed, so he pays $655 in court-ordered fines, and he gets, has to go on probation, and that's it. For all of this, for dumping all of these packages in the forest. Really?
That's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, I know.
What should his crime, what should the punishment be for that crime, Kim?
Well, the
You're
lawyer
tough.
said he, shouldn't have been serving time behind bars because he's a really good person and this was an anomaly and he didn't mean to do this and he had things going on in his life.
God.
Had a rough time in his life that was going on. He didn't have time to deliver all the packages, whatever.
Oh, my God.
I did everything right and they indicted me.
I mean, it's just, what is happening in this country? Nobody owns what they did.
I mean, how long for dumping all the packages in the forest? 450 packages in the forest.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
Do you have to go to jail for that? I mean, he already lost his job. I don't know.
Well, he did lose the job. I thought you said he's on probation.
No, he has to go on probation. That's part of his court sentence.
I see, but he's
No
been
prison time.
fired from FedEx, right?
No, he's a former FedEx driver now. Yeah.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
Good day, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
No, he's out. He's out.
Wow. It is
I don't
pretty
know
crazy
about
that he's
prison time, but
yeah.
it just seems like $650 on probation isn't necessarily enough.
I agree.
I mean, I want
agree.
a little more teeth to that.
Especially when you do it around the holidays. I mean, it's not...
Someone did this to spoil our Christmas.
Yeah, you should have the Christmas enhancement on that, where if you get rid of and destroy mail during the Christmas season, there's a Christmas enhancement.
Yeah, it's the Santa Claus. Get it?
Right. I'm just...
God bless America.
All right, well,
The end.
this is happening in America, ma'am. So I don't know what to say.
I mean,
these
all
American
the people
values that I hear so much about, I mean, apparently laziness is one of them.
It's kind of like porch pirating. He's not benefiting financially from it, right? He dumped him in the woods, but still, it's stealing packages just the same.
Well,
so, I don't know.
From the stealing standpoint, it's the same as porch piracy, but from the standpoint of his responsibility, which is to deliver the mail or to deliver these packages, I don't get it. You're right. He's not benefiting from it. It's not like he went through it. He literally just didn't want the responsibility. He wouldn't want to deal with it. So he
didn't want the job, basically, is what happened there.
I didn't want the job, exactly.
$655 in probation. There you go.
Not right.
Amazon is...
They're pulling out of this iRobot deal, huh?
Yeah, they're pumping the brakes on the iRobot purchase. Both companies revealed yesterday that they mutually agreed to call off the deal, citing no path to regulatory approval in the European Union. As a result, Amazon will have to fork over $94 million to the robotic vacuums maker due to a termination fee. No. That's nice. San Francisco's oldest toy store is closing down. They warned that they might have to, and now, yes, they blame downtown violence as one reason why. Inflation and low sales, other factors. Jeffrey's Toys reveals on their social media site saying they are saddened to come to this, but they've been struggling for years. The store on Kearney between Post and Geary in San Francisco marked full price items 30% off until the doors close for good sometime next month.
Wow.
So Jeffrey's Toys is checking out.
That's tough. Yeah, that was the inspiration for was it Toy Story? Is that what you said? Or is it?
Yeah, it was Toy Story.
Toy Story, okay.
Yeah.
There's a push for this in California. I mean, hey, who doesn't love some entertainment, right? Entertainment zones. This is in Arlington what it looks like, but there's a new push for entertainment zones in California.
No.
You don't want an entertainment zones? Come on.
We're not an entertaining country anymore.
Oh.
It's all serious. We're on the brink of civil war. What is it with these entertainment zones?
A bill aims to allow bars and restaurants to serve alcohol outdoors in public spaces. It's a step beyond the current law, which lets businesses do just that by setting up booths at festivals.
Oh, sure, of course, yeah.
Senator Scott Wiener of San Francisco behind this effort, trying to return foot traffic to pre-pandemic levels. He says getting people back out in the streets is key to the economic recovery of these cities across the state. And how do you get people back out in the streets? By serving them booze outdoors.
Yeah, maybe cut down on the street crime, and you'll have more people out on the street, Scott Wiener. And by the way, Scott Wiener, how dare you make it so I can't drive fast in California? Isn't he behind that one too, Kim?
Yes, he is, with the speed governors. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you need to, you need to speed up.
Sometimes
anyway,
you do.
I don't. I'd worry about safety on the streets before I worry about, at the same time maybe that you're trying to get pedestrians on the street.
Worried about street crime, then maybe having a bunch of drunken people wandering the streets might not be the best idea. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's a possibility. This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. I've got my hibiscus tea today. Woo-hoo! So good. What are you drinking over there?
I actually have the French press that I made this morning.
Oh.
And I've added a couple of shots of espresso.
Okay.
So I have the espresso and the French press.
Look at you.
And I have a little soy creamer, which is kind of off-brand for me. Usually I like it black, but today I'm living in an adventurous time, really.
How very Los Angeles of you.
Yes, indeed.
Mm-hmm.
What, the soy creamer?
Yeah. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com doesn't need soy creamer.
Very Los Angeles. It's funny how L.A. took over activism from San Francisco. It's weird. You come to San Francisco and the Bay Area, that's the height of and the seat of so much. I mean, Cal Berkeley and the hate and the anti-war movement of the late 60s and 70s. I mean, this was where, civil rights, so much has been there, the epicenter in the Bay Area. Now, soy creamer, you're so L.A. It's true. I mean, L.A. it just seems more soy creamer friendly. Anyway, I have it in my Coachella Valley Coffee.
I do, yes. And let me do this spot, and then I have a breaking news story. But CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, 10% off by just for being an exclusive Mark Thompson Show listener. All you have to do is when you go to CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, you click on what you want, you go to your cart, and then as you're checking out, you put Mark T in the code for saving money, and boom, 10% off comes off your total, and then you get a box full of coffee and tea, and it's really worth splurging on yourself because
I added some Kahlua. Delish, says Rod. Yeah, there you go. Now you're
nice.
Now you're talking.
So I usually like to end on an up note, but I will tell you that ABC7 is reporting a death after a small plane crash today near Buchanan Airfield in Concord. One person has died. The Van RV-6 aircraft is in the road in Concord near the intersection of Concord Avenue and Diamond Boulevard. They've closed down the street. The alternative routes are being developed and the police are there. So again, this is going on in Concord Avenue and Diamond Boulevard, at least one fatality. And it's a story we'll continue to follow here on the Mark Thompson Show.
I'm very sorry to hear that. In an effort to pull us back to something positive.
Yeah.
Murphy Rowan says, took my Coachella K-Cups to the hotel for last weekend's dance convention. The Hyatt has Keurigs in the room, so you can use the Coachella K-Cups. Oh, yeah.
Nice.
No,
Okay.
Coachella's got the K. It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Knock around that website. Reach out to them. Call them if you want. Tell them I told you to call if you need something special. They're really helpful at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, and use the discount code MarkT. All right. Thank you, Kim.
I'm Kim McAllister. It's the Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson. The Mark Thompson Show.
This is Mark Thompson.
My wife wants some vegetables for crudité.
Emil Schaffhausen, a salad.
Jada had nothing to do with it.
I completely disagree.
Person, woman, man, camera, TV.
And this is their new hoax.
Why are you yelling?
You do not know what you are talking about.
It was great. I loved it. Listen to me. I don't want to hear you.
Saudi Arabia pays cash.
It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
Hey, Mark, it's George Santos here. A lot of people are telling me you're a liar. Seriously, what the
What up, everybody? It's our Tuesday show. Tuesdays bring Jefferson Graham into the mix. How about it for the longtime USA Today tech writer? He left USA Today, and now he's out on his own. He's got a great red-hot YouTube channel and a Substack newsletter, both of which I subscribe to. I encourage you as well. Jefferson Graham, Photo Walks TV. You have some gorgeous pictures that you post when you're not actually posting the videos. These stunning pictures of sunsets in Manhattan Beach and along the coast and in San Francisco. Absolutely gorgeous. Welcome, Jeff. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to see you again.
You did something that we're all being forced to do, and that is you watched the new Amazon platform with ads, and you had indicated to us that you would report back as to how obnoxious it is. So please go ahead and give us your assessment of the new Amazon full of ads platform.
Okay, well, let's take a step back. Prime Video is a perk to anybody who subscribes to the Prime service, which most people get for the expedited shipping. It's $139 a year. You get, supposedly unlimited entertainment fare ad-free until it's not. January 30th was when it's not. And we're going to put in ads. And if you don't want to see the ads, it will cost you an extra $2.99 on top of your $140. So what's it like? Well, you're going to be shocked to hear me tell you this, but it's about as good as you would expect, as you would want an ad-supported service to be. On day one, I don't trust them at all, okay? But it's as good as you would, like, what do you want out of an ad-supported service? Okay, put the ads in front of the show that you're about to watch for a minute or two, and then give me a natural break, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45, natural break, right? Well, it's impossible for Amazon to give you a natural break because it's a computer-run operation that has thousands and thousands of titles. There's no human being deciding where that ad break should be. So it just gets, automatically thrown in. But from what I watched so far, they put the ads in the front, and then, a lot later, limited ads is what they're calling it. Limited ads. They're not that obnoxious compared to how Amazon is doing it with Freevee, which is their other ad-supported service.
Okay. Everybody's being, and indicating this is being hit by that offering when you go into Prime Video, which is, hey, we're going to ads, but if you don't want the ads, $2.99 a month. So last night I clicked the $2.99. Great, charge me $2.99 a month, no ads. I go onto Amazon,
and you got ads.
I got ads. What's going on?
Amazon. I should have prefaced this by saying they're one of the most obnoxious marketers. You're supposedly you're paying $140 for no ads, but every time I have an Amazon TV, every time you turn it on, you're getting ads nonstop. Or even staring at the screensaver the other day, it was TurboTax. Not pictures of Jeff on his vacations. It was TurboTax. So that's why I said I don't trust these people whatsoever.
So you're saying, but to your point, prefaced, by the way, is a ding word. Well done. The idea somehow that you could pay for no ads and then be served ads, I don't get that. I mean, I get they're evil and bad, etc. But how do I get rid of the ads? Not that way, because the ads are still coming up. And this is I think what I'm starting to figure out, there are now so many other channels, platforms that populate within the Amazon channel platform that even though I have no ads on Amazon Prime, when I go to some other show that's being offered to me within the Amazon video platform, it doesn't have the same deal that you just made with Amazon about no ads, and so you're going to have to stomach them. Is that more or less correct?
I did not pay the $3, so I don't know your experience. I'm guessing that you said, okay, fine, let's watch The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel or something that's on Amazon. And it starts off with an ad for an Amazon show. And then it opens up and it goes into the show, and they don't break for an ad. I think that's what you're paying for.
I see.
No break in the ad. Now let's talk about streaming devices. Okay, there's 3 of them. There's the Amazon Fire Stick, there's the Roku, and there's Apple TV. And Amazon and Roku, if you're in their platforms, are the most obnoxious. They're going to run lots of ads. Apple will not. The Fire Stick you can buy for $15 to $30. Ditto for the Roku, and Apple is $100. So, yeah, I think you see where things are going there.
So you're saying that if I were to get the Amazon Fire Stick or Roku, does that help me at all?
Well, let me ask you a question. What are you using to get your streaming?
I'm just on. I use Prime Video. Go Prime Video Max, whatever. It just comes in over the.
But how
YouTube TV is what I have. I mean, also.
Okay. So YouTube TV, and then you click the you click the icon for Amazon Prime Video within YouTube TV.
No, not within YouTube TV. It's a separate icon on my smart TV. So I have you have all of those. You have Max. You have I have
So you have a smart TV that doesn't require you to have a separate streaming stick, right? It's just built in.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like a Vizio or Samsung, I guess.
Right. I think it's LG.
LG. Okay.
Yeah.
So I have the Amazon television. So everything goes through Amazon. That's why I think my experience has to be a lot more obnoxious than yours.
Oh, maybe. I mean, I don't know. This was really frustrating because right on the heels of, I don't mean to get too bogged down in this, everybody, but this is the future because we have these streaming services. We've become accustomed to them not having ads, and now they're going to be inundating us with ads, not only on Prime Video, but also on Netflix, et cetera. And the way to get around that is they're going to say, well, you can pay us, and you won't need to deal with the ads anymore. Then you pay them, and there's still ads. What I was seeing last night as I continued to knock around, I'm looking literally for programs that don't say ad supported. Ad. And I couldn't find it on Prime Video. I finally ended up watching a documentary that was not ad supported last night.
And Freevee is worse. Freevee is owned by Amazon. It used to be called IMDb TV.
Sure.
And those ads are they have a lot of movies on there, and you'll watch for 2 minutes, and then all of a sudden there's an ad break.
Yeah, you mentioned, and then there's a long ad break, and then there's a short bit of content, and then another long ad break. I mean, that's just, those people won't hang out on those platforms long. Wondering
I bet if I was Amazon and and I was giving you a company line, I would say, well, Mark, you weren't seeing ads, you were seeing promos for upcoming shows. That is helpful to you so that you can understand what's on our platform. We just want you to watch more.
You should be working at Amazon with that response, so ready to go. Angel in the Bay Area with a $10 super chat.
Big shout out.
Big shout out. Thank you. Says, wondering, why does my Fire TV get KTVU Plus? Old Coffee 36, channel 36 in the Bay Area. But my Samsung won't pick that up. Any thought on that? Why does her Fire TV get it?
Not familiar with the KTVU app, but I assume that should be, if it's available in one place, it should be available via the App Store somewhere else. What kind of TV does the recipient have?
Well, she says her Samsung won't pick it up for some reason.
Does Samsung have
my Fire TV
store?
Gets KTVU Plus, but my Samsung won't.
Okay.
Any thought about that?
I would contact KTVU and say, hey, I can't see on my Samsung TV. What do I do?
Yeah. There you go. Or someone suggests, get a 10-year-old to help you program your TV, Chris says.
Also buy an antenna. These antennas are $25, $30, and they're very, very powerful, and you should be able to pick up KTVU on your antenna.
Yeah, the new antennas, as Jeff's noted before, are really something different, not like the old rabbit ears.
Rabbit ears, right.
Yeah.
And they have tuners in them. Yeah.
What's happening on PhotoWalks TV on your way through? We'd love to just mention what it is.
Yeah, we're going to go to Alcatraz. We're going to go to Alcatraz Island this weekend, and visit it for the great views of the city.
Yeah, unreal.
Which is now you're looking at Imperial Beach, which is a fun border town 5 miles from Mexico. That I had a ball. I love the idea that I could stand on the pier and look at the Tijuana skyline. And I had
there's such great stuff on and you do it all with such approachable technology. It's just essentially all iPhone stuff and Android stuff. You're really great. So I love watching your stuff, pal.
Thank you.
There's the Tijuana Estuary for those who are just listening. Check it out. PhotoWalks TV on YouTube. There's an egret. Yeah. Good
friendly
stuff.
One. Yeah. Didn't fly away.
Jeff, love our time with you. And I look forward to seeing more from you. And as I say, on PhotoWalks TV. Thanks for being here.
Hopefully you won't be seeing too many ads tonight, Mark.
Thank you. Thanks, Jefferson Graham, everybody. Woohoo! Bye, Jeff.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Kim, I am going to call upon you to do a turbo newscast. Then I'm going to bring on David Cay Johnston. Then in the last half hour, if I have your blessing, I will get to the stories about legalized marijuana in California and whether it's actually helped the state. You can tell me. I'll give you some of the data. And then edibles safer than smoking pot. So I'm to my weed smokers and people who have an interest in what's happening with policy on marijuana in California. We'll put it off until the latter part of the next hour.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Well, the good thing about weed smokers is they're usually pretty laid back about segments getting shifted. They're not all amped up and agitated. So thank you, weed smokers and those interested in weed policy, which is really what it's about. We'll do that at the end of the next half hour. Kim's quick turbo news, and then the great Pulitzer Prize winner David Cay Johnston. Smash the like button like a boss. Mark Thompson.
What he's got going here is a situation.
It is a situation. Where's my, there it is. Yes. The clarion call for Kim's news.
This is the Mark Thompson Show. I'm Kim McAllister, and a verdict is expected soon in Donald Trump's civil fraud trial in New York City. Democratic State Attorney General Letitia James wants a Manhattan judge to order the former president to pay a $370 million fine. She's accusing him of falsely inflating the value of his real estate holdings in order to get more favorable loans. The U.S. Secretary of State says the response to the attack by Iran-backed militants in Jordan that killed 3 U.S. service members could come in stages. Antony Blinken telling reporters the U.S. response against Iran could be multi-leveled and sustained over time, and President Biden has vowed a response soon. UPS is laying off 12,000 employees. The news comes after the company reported earnings Tuesday that fell short of revenue estimates. It also reported drops in international and domestic shipping volume as well. Despite everything, Americans are more confident in the U.S. economy than they have been in the last 2 years. According to the latest Gallup Economic Confidence Index, the outlook still overall negative, but has improved over the last 2 months, and it's at its highest point since January of 2022. It also found, though, that nearly 2 in 3 Americans are still concerned about inflation and say price increases have caused financial stress on their households. Still, the economic outlook is said to be better. Brian Kohberger's murder trial is not expected to start for at least another year. He's the one accused of killing 4 University of Idaho students. He had another pre-trial court appearance in Idaho late last week where the judge held off from setting an updated schedule in those proceedings, including a trial date. And as was just mentioned with Mark and Jefferson Graham, commercials are starting to pop up on Amazon Prime Video. Users who didn't agree to pay an extra $2.99 a month for the ad-free option started seeing limited advertisements today, or yesterday rather. The company said in September the extra charge will allow them to continue investing in compelling content. Although Mark paid the $2.99 and he's still seeing the ad, so I don't know how you get rid of them.
It's an outrage.
It's an outrage. What is happening in the United States of America?
America, exactly.
It's crazy. I don't know. All these question marks. Will Taylor Swift go to the Super Bowl? Will she not? The excitement kicking into high gear for the Super Bowl next week. Taylor Swift, of course, dating Kansas City Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce. And apparently that means Swifties are coming to the Super Bowl, and it means big bucks. Recent data shows since Swift started going to games in September, she has created brand value of more than $331 million for the Chiefs and the NFL.
That's just wild. That's when I was talking about her political influence. It's a real thing.
It is a real thing.
She is perhaps the greatest influencer in the world.
The Chiefs face the San Francisco 49ers in Las Vegas on February 11th. This report is sponsored by you, which means we do rely on you to help us support the show. Please find us at themarkthompsonshow.com. That's where the Patreon and the PayPal links are, themarkthompsonshow.com. I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
My wife wants some vegetables for crudité. I was a basketball referee.
Feels great, baby.
Who's Mark Thompson?
It's unbelievably offensive.
What he's got going here is a situation.
I was fortunate. Everyone I worked with made me better at my job.
You are a cover-up artist and you are a liar.
Yes, it is a great pleasure on Tuesdays. We look forward so much to talking to this guy. He's a Pulitzer Prize winning, best-selling investigative journalist and author. He's the co-founder of DCReport.org. He's David Cay Johnston, everyone. And David,
how you doing, Mark?
Nice to see you, sir. Those are the famous Rochester. Is that what that is? Susan B. Anthony, Frederick Douglass. Do they have some connection to?
This is the shirt.
Cab Calloway.
Made by somebody. I'm not sure who, and it has famous Rochesterians, of which you'll notice I'm down here near the bottom.
There you go. Not bad. In the top 10. How about it for that? That's strong.
My wife found this on the internet and ordered it, and I've seen one or two other people down wearing it.
I have my Frederick Douglass finger puppet, my favorite.
Yeah, I have one of those too.
Yeah, so put him back here next to the other. David Cay Johnston, I was thinking about you in relation to all the focus that has now been centering around Donald Trump's finances. You've written chapter and verse literally in your books about Donald Trump, the smokescreen, the realities, his complete, the image essentially that he's curated so effectively with help from the media as to his sort of billionaire status and his status of insane wealth. Now that we're looking into his finances and a couple of these legal judgments, you write in DCReport.org that we're really going to see some of the limitations to Donald Trump's financial realities. Can you speak to that?
Grabbed him by the wallet. We're going to see if he can perform. Donald had a $5 million judgment against him for defaming E. Jean Carroll because a judge found that she had been raped under New York law. And when he denied that and called her a liar and a whack job, a jury held that he defamed her and he owed $5 million. And Donald is such a genius that he's now turned that into a loss of that he's going to eventually have to pay of $88 million more. I mean, this is just stunning that one can be that incompetent at what they're doing. So,
and when you say that, you're talking about because of his defamatory remarks, which he just can't stop
he kept
making.
Doubling and tripling and quintupling down and denouncing her again and again. And he shows up in the courtroom and he walks out, as the judge put on the record. So, I mean, there's a meme going around the internet that if Alina Habari is your lawyer, she'll downgrade your drunk driving arrest into first-degree murder.
She does seem, manifestly incompetent. But anyway, to your point,
so the issue here is that now Donald, he's going to eventually have to pay this, but he says he's going to appeal. Well, to appeal a federal court decision, you either have to post the $88 million with the court, as Trump did with the $5 million, where he put up the money, or he has to get a bond for 20% of the amount. Given that Donald Trump doesn't pay back loans, doesn't pay as he's supposed to, that he's got 91 pending felony charges against him, and that we now have this new report that just came out from the Monitor overseeing his finances, showing that there's a lot more nonsense and just made up stuff that we even knew about in his New York civil fraud trial. What banker would loan him that kind of money? And what security would they demand? Because they know that if Trump ends up not being able to pay and the bondholder, the bond issuer is on the line, Trump will fight them every step of the way about collecting. And so it could be years with delays before that happens. On the other hand, if Donald really has what he claims, $400 million of cash, well, then he can put the money up, no trouble. He can put up the money for the bond and hypothecate to the person who puts up the bond $88 million from his supposed trove of cash. So if Donald doesn't appeal, we will know, hey, folks, remember when he told you he was worth more than $10 billion and then he became president and said, I don't want to sign my disclosure statements on my finances. Just let me file it without signing it under penalty of perjury. He was told, no, you got to sign it. And I estimated his net worth from that disclosure at $1 billion. Forbes said $3 billion and change. In either case, $1 billion, $3 billion, that's nowhere near 10. And even my billion in my mind was incredibly generous here. So we're going to see, the secret we're about to see revealed is, does Donald really have the $400 million of cash he claims?
Well, and you've really written and commented along the way that, again, this is an image that he's cultivated as opposed to something that's been backed up by actual holdings. And he does play fast and loose with the numbers that he's getting called, into court. And actually, there's a judgment being handed down in that fraud case over that. In the question about the fraud, because I'm seeing it in the chat, What do you expect to see there in terms of damages? When are we going to see? The question is, when are we going to see a judgment handed down in that case? It's pretty soon,
Judge
right?
Arthur, in the New York State fraud case, Judge Arthur Engoron, as early as tomorrow, may issue his opinion. Now, his duty is to assess how much ill-got money did Trump receive from his persistent frauds. And this new report by the Monitor he appointed, former Judge Barbara Jones, is damning as can be about his finances and his conduct. The Attorney General is asking for $350 million. $350 million plus 83 to E. Jean Carroll now puts him well over his $400 million, which means some kind of property somewhere probably have to be sold to satisfy these. Trump will no doubt appeal the state decision as well, but as with the E. Jean Carroll, there's almost no grounds to appeal. And his lawyers have mishandled these cases in terms of building a case for appeal. They'll try, and they'll get some months perhaps, but this is not going to go on for years and years as to the actual disgorgement of the money. And so, Donald is about to be stripped naked financially. And remember, to Donald Trump, Donald is his money. It is what defines him. And he just makes it up, and unbelievable how many people believe him when he says he's a billionaire. And,
Well, long before he was president, you were writing about him and this
35 years ago.
Yeah, this world that he created. I did then want to ask you about something that I believe you touch on in your piece, and that is, and we'll put a link to your piece in this because I think it's sort of instructive also, the legal part of it, which is that I think, as you note, you can claw back or from his property holdings, as you were just saying, you can get this judgment paid.
Oh, yeah, no, E. Jean Carroll is eventually going to be paid. Anybody who thinks Donald will slither out of this, no. He will be able to delay, and the only way she won't get paid is if there's not enough money to pay her the $83 million. She's not going to be first in line. I mean, the New York State, if it wants to, they're going to get in line ahead of her. And Trump, I expect that Judge Engoron's decision that will come as early as tomorrow in the New York civil fraud case will, again, take away his business licenses. In New York, we call them certificates, without which he can't do business. That's going to force the transfer of the ownership of those properties to somebody else. And they're not going to sell at carefully managed prices. They're going to go at fire sale prices. And Donald, for instance, only owns his 3-story apartment at the top, the 56th, 7th, and 8th floors of Trump Tower. The office space he rents out, that's about almost 20 floors, and the retail space. And there's already a meme on the internet where it says Trump Tower, and it's been replaced with E. Jean Carroll Tower.
Right,
Same thing with his airplane, Trump replaced with E. Jean Carroll. But if properties have to be sold, they're just not going to bring the highest prices. That may mean there's not enough money to pay both the state of New York and E. Jean Carroll. And let's remember, there are all sorts of other lawsuits out there against Trump. Police officers from the attempted coup that Trump instigated. There are more than 24 women who've accused him of sexual assault or rape, and some of them have cases. There are other civil fraud cases against Trump, and the tide has turned on him. Instead of getting away with this stuff, he's now being backed into a corner.
So these civil cases and then the state judgment, et cetera, the idea somehow that he's been barred his business from doing work in the state of New York, for example, these are all things that have teeth and continue to have staying power, even if he is elected president, David Cay Johnston?
Well, if he's elected president, it will help him stave off making the payments, but that's about all.
Why will it help him do that, David?
Well, because he will be able to say, I can't appear for this deposition on this date, sort of thing.
I see.
The courts have made it very clear since Bill Clinton that being president doesn't absolve you from being pursued in a civil case. Jennifer Flowers, who was one of Bill Clinton's innumerable mistresses had brought a case, and he had to testify. I think it was her case, but it may have been one of the other women. Donald, for the moment, remember this has only been a few days now, has managed not to defame E. Jean Carroll again. He posted a bunch of things on Truth Social, but you'll see her name isn't there. But I don't believe Donald is capable of stopping making these comments. No amount of money, and that's what the punitive damages of $65 million are intended to do, to say this is a price so high we know you won't defame again. I don't think Donald's capable of never defaming her again. Somewhere down the road, whether it's tomorrow or 8 months from now, Donald will go back to defaming E. Jean Carroll because it's who he is. It's what he is. He's a 13-year-old boy who's had a Groundhog Day life. You know, he thinks about girls the way 13-year-old boys do, and you and I both know how that goes. And he believes he's not accountable to anyone, anywhere, for any reason.
Yeah. Walter agrees with you. He'll continue to defame E. Jean Carroll, so she'll have to sue him again. She is 80. You think she'll get her money in any kind
doesn't
of
matter. Her
timeline
estate will get the money.
I know the estate will get it, but
either one of them dies, it doesn't matter. Donald Trump's estate will pay, or Jean Carroll's estate will collect.
Maybe Kushner can loan Trump money, says Vilma.
Well, the $2 billion Kushner is investing isn't his money; it's the Saudis' money. And remember, that's a country where not long ago they beheaded 36 men for the crime of praying in public for a better government.
Yeah, that is it's a tough crew.
Saudi Arabia pays cash.
Fees off of that, 2% a year plus management other fees for performance. But and also, you know, Ivanka Trump got herself out of this case, the New York civil case.
Yeah.
And I don't think she's going to do anything that might drag her back into this. That would be foolhardy. In fact, don't be shocked if Ivanka throws her daddy under the bus.
Wow. And then I want to move on to kind of an odd endorsement that Donald Trump got. But before I get to that, just as long as we're talking about money, there is this instance of this bombshell, and it's in the business fraud case, in New York. And it's about a loan that Trump claimed he got. It's a $50 million loan. Yeah, you got David's holding it up.
Yep.
Yeah, there's the document. He's paying on this loan. The only thing is the loan came from himself. So he's essentially paying himself for this $50 million loan. And then it comes out that he doesn't even have the loan, that it's a completely made up line item anyway.
Yeah, this is what's called a springing loan. And the purpose of it is to avoid having to pay tax on something until that loan springs to life. It turns out that former Judge Barbara Jones, who's the court-appointed monitor in the case that Judge Engoron is hearing, the one brought by New York State Attorney General Letitia James, she has had experts going through Donald's finances, and she's finding all sorts of stuff where they've not been straightforward about this, and they don't have. And it turns out in the case of this loan, they don't have documentation. Well, it's one of the principles in the law is you can't just say you did something, you actually have to do it. There's a case I wrote about years ago with the use of a tax avoidance vehicle by New York companies using a Delaware entity to escape New York taxes. And two companies came up for trial at the same time after audits. And one of them, a paint company, they had done everything they're supposed to do. They had dotted the I's, crossed the T's, followed practice, paid interest rates, all the technical rules. The other ones, they just said, well, we did this. And the courts held that the guys who jumped through all the hoops, they got the tax benefits, and the other guys not only didn't get them, they had to pay big penalties and interest. And so if Donald's thing here, even if you ignore that it's fraud, he's lost the tax benefits for it. Now the question is, will he be audited and pursued? Donald may get away with not paying some federal taxes because the IRS is so underfunded and they may not want to raise this as an issue. But you can be absolutely sure that the state of New York will vigilantly go through his tax returns. And New York state tax returns, except for retirement income, Social Security and pensions, 401ks, are identical to federal returns. So they will scrutinize him. And if he's cheated, if he's done something I've written a lot about for the last 25 years called 1231 cheating, which is rampant because the IRS doesn't look for it, even though it's easy to look for it. If he's done what's called 1231 cheating, then they'll catch him and they can prosecute him for it.
Yeah, I mean, they're talking about it openly. So, yeah.
None of this, Mark, should surprise people. I wrote a piece for the Sunday New York Daily News some months ago, how to prosecute Donald Trump. And it was addressed to Alvin Bragg, who didn't take my advice. But I pointed out that the Donald Trump tax returns, that information that got out, he created 65 fictitious businesses and took tax deductions. Some of them, they had no revenue. He just took tax deductions. Well, the reason he's going to be prosecuted for that was that he did the same thing in 1984. He was tried twice, civilly, not criminally, but tried for tax fraud by the city of New York and the state of New York. He lost both cases. His own lawyer testified under oath that Donald is a forger, that he'd forged the documents, the tax return document. And so being on notice from these very strongly written opinions, you can't create a fictitious company and take deductions for expenses you didn't incur and can't prove. He's very easy to prosecute for this. If there's a slam dunk case, doing it 65 more times, I don't know what would be easier to a jury.
His world of invented deductions and loans, it's now becoming, as you suggested, laid bare through these court investigations. Now to the politics, and then I'll let you go. But the politics of his reelection or his election get more complicated and weird. Rapper Snoop Dogg, who had been in a fight with Donald Trump, they had apparently this back and forth. Now there's been a rapprochement. They are cool with each other. Donald Trump, he ain't done nothing wrong to me, said Snoop. Yeah. He has done only great things for me. He pardoned Michael Harris. Now, Michael Harris is the co-founder of Death Row Records,
right,
and was given a clemency, right, by Donald Trump.
Yep. Well, when this is all over, and it will be all over, there are going to be two sets of people involved in public life in America: those who demonstrated principle and resolve, and those who, when it was convenient, kissed Donald Trump's ring. And Snoop Dogg just put himself in that group. I mean, the man's a tremendously talented artist, but what he's doing here and what a whole lot of other politicians are doing are very troubling. Mitch McConnell, at least in the last few days, has leaked that Donald Trump is trying to make things at the border as bad as possible rather than getting a bipartisan bill passed. And that tells you that he's had enough of Donald Trump. He's just not willing to take the lead up front, and he wasn't willing to free Republican senators to convict Donald Trump on his second impeachment, which, we wouldn't have all these troubles today had Mitch McConnell. So there are some people in the middle, but Snoop Dogg's a good example of where, expediency wins out over principles.
Right, exactly. I mean, here's a guy who was convicted of attempted murder of a corrections officer. That's what that guy was, the co-founder of Death Row Records, is serving time for. And he got clemency, and it's sort of like, I don't care about everything else. He helped me out on this one issue. So, the politics of me takes precedence over the anything else. David, I refer everyone to dcreport.org. In fact, I will link to it in the description on this show. That really talks about the E. Jean Carroll case, but more than that, it speaks to the Trump fortune and how it may be a small F on fortune and a big F on another word for Donald Trump. So, hey,
Mark, if I can drop one last thing before we go.
Of course, please.
In the Santa Cruz Sentinel, my hometown newspaper, there's an article today. I reposted the picture in my Twitter, David Cay, my thread, same name, and my Facebook page, so anybody can access them. In the Capitola next to Santa Cruz, they had a fatal accident at a busy intersection. So they put up a new stop sign, and the stop sign has flashing lights. Turns out they've done this in San Diego. Interesting idea. I hope people take a look at it. Maybe it's not going to work, and maybe it's a cheap and inexpensive. There we go on the screen. A cheap and inexpensive way to do it. But I think it would be smart if people take a look at this and think about: do we have to put up a 4-way traffic light setup, which costs these days well north of $250,000, or can some thoughtful but inexpensive things like this be effective in saving lives and preventing injuries?
That's great. That's terrific. Well, there you see it at David's Twitter feed. And so you're right. I mean, again, maybe more common sense. Yeah, thanks, Tony, for that. Appreciate you putting it up.
Thank you, Tony.
David, thank you for joining us again. We'll talk to you next Tuesday. Appreciate it. David Cay Johnston, everybody.
Okay.
Loving that.
The Mark Thompson Show.
How about all of that? The money, the endorsement. It's crazy. There was a big legal case. Can I do some law and disorder here, Kim? Do you mind if I do some? I think there's a kind of super important. And
bring it.
I have the whole thing in law and disorder. I have scandal. I have a watershed legal case. And I have just downright thievery. Let's do it all. This is Law and Disorder.
In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law. You're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
There was a brewing controversy. You may or may not actually be aware of it. But the United States was cheated. The United States skaters were cheated in the Olympics. Now, the U.S. Olympic Committee, the International Olympic Committee, they're all getting together and it's being made right. Members of the U.S. Olympic figure skating team learned late yesterday that they will get gold medals now. Russian skater Kamila Valieva has been disqualified for doping at the 2022 Winter Games in Beijing. So
what?
Yes. The U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee got word that the IOC would award the gold to the U.S. for the team competition, which is thrown into turmoil after Valieva's positive test from 6 weeks before the competition was revealed. From 6 weeks before the competition, it's.
And this is 2 years later, we're finding out that they've, come on.
There was an email sent from the IOC to the USOPC, these are the Olympic committees and official bodies, right? Saying that, quote, they are now in a position to award the medals in accordance with the ranking, which has to be established by the International Skating Union. The USOPC confirming that CEO Sarah Hirschland had received the news that Americans were declared the winners. The IOC said, the International Olympic Committee, that it, quote, had great sympathy with the athletes who have had to wait for 2 years to get the final results of their competition. The IOC will contact the respective National Olympic Committees in order to organize a dignified Olympic medal ceremony. So you realize you cheat these competitors who live this world of discipline and sacrifice. You cheat them out of their moment on the receiving stand, right, where they're going to get their gold medal. You cheat them out of that. It's still uncertain how Valieva's disqualification is going to affect the silver and bronze medals. Japan finished third. It's likely to move to second. And depending on how a scoring rule is interpreted, Russia could still finish third ahead of Canada, even after deducting Valieva's points from the two events that she skated in during the team event. But this has involved, as I say, skaters who've made supreme sacrifices, and finally, the anti-doping rules come down on the Russians, and they are stripped of the medals the U.S. receives them.
And they should be embarrassed.
Yeah, sadly, I don't know how many of you saw, was it Icarus? Is that the documentary, Tony? I think it was called Icarus.
Google it.
It was about the doping in the Olympics and how sophisticated the Russians were. God, it's just unreal. I mean, you talk about a caper, it's incredible what the Russians did to dope. And that's by the way, an Academy Award-winning documentary. You ought to see it. It's very, very good. So, Tony, you can...
Thanks, Tony.
I don't know why I'm turning to you, Tony. Like, we usually always find this stuff, we mention it, and all of a sudden Tony's... But I believe it's called Icarus. Anyway.
When you say... there
it is. Yeah, Icarus.
When you say sophisticated, you mean like they found new drugs that aren't detected type of thing?
I mean that there are so many complexities that they addressed. You have to be able to somehow penetrate this is all done from memory now, so you really should, you should look at the movie.
Google it.
But you have to be able to penetrate a system that's pretty sophisticated, right? You get these athletes to, there it is, how Icarus accidentally exposed a major Ocean's 11 style doping scheme. That's how significant it is. They literally drilled through certain walls to be able to get different bottles into where the urine is and the blood samples are. I mean, it was incredible. It's not it's not just all the dope. It's being able to swap out and otherwise penetrate these previously impenetrable bottles and samples. It's incredible. Check it out, Icarus. But at least in this instant, in the instance of the last skating Olympic showing, that wrong has been righted. Bayer is ordered to pay $2.25 billion after the jury concludes that Roundup weed killer caused a man's cancer. Remember, Bayer owns Roundup in a huge acquisition of a bunch of other companies as well. The verdict is condemnation of 50 years of misconduct, said the attorney for the defendant, for the plaintiff. The World Health Organization has said an ingredient in Roundup might cause cancer. Bayer, of course, says its products are not carcinogenic. They have lost this case before.
In Richmond, here in the Bay Area. Yeah.
Exactly. Bayer previously paid $10 billion in settlements to thousands of cancer patients. This stuff causes cancer. And this guy, John McKivison, who's diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, he's 49. He sued the company, saying that he developed the cancer after using Roundup on his property for 2 decades. And the jury saying they agree. Roundup is responsible. $2 billion in punitive damages in this Philadelphia court. It's a cancer-causing product. Monsanto was negligent. Monsanto failed to warn about the dangers of the weed killer. This from his attorney. The jury's unanimous verdict was a condemnation of 50 years of misconduct by Monsanto and a declaration that its misconduct was in reckless disregard of human safety and a substantial cause of John McKibben's cancer.
I was looking at this story last night and just seeing, is Roundup still being sold?
Yes.
And I looked up on the Target app, and you can buy it right now, today, on store shelves. This cancer-causing agent that seeps into our ground and gets into our groundwater and everything else is for sale on shelves across America.
The WHO has said that this stuff in Monsanto's Roundup, it's called glyphosate, is probably carcinogenic to humans, and still it is there. And it was a huge controversy in the last administration. The Trump administration wanted to keep it on shelves. While there was, within their own administration, there was a move to remove it from shelves, from the EPA. I think the There were several government agencies involved in this. But anyway, it's still out there. It's a great victory for this guy, but it is a crime that stuff continues to be sold with that ingredient, which is clearly cancer-causing. So, meantime, in Law and Disorder, this is straight up good old crime. A Livermore IT director, Livermore is in the East Bay of the Bay Area, stole more than 140 Apple laptops from his Redwood City employer. He was the senior director of information technology, IT as they call it, at a tech company, and part of his job was buying Apple laptops for employees. But according to federal prosecutors, he sold at least 141 of the computers for cash.
Why not?
Cost the company more than $500,000.
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
It apparently did work for a while. His federal indictment alleges that he started stealing and selling MacBooks in 2019 and kept up the scheme until last May. The company that employed him is not named in this indictment. But he's been busy selling stuff that didn't belong to him, but that he did order. Meantime, a priceless 18th century painting is returned after a theft by New Jersey mobsters.
Oh, now we're talking.
Yeah, it's a
Joe
wild
Box.
idea.
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
It's
Anthony.
a priceless. Yeah, where am I? Where am I?
Joe Fish, Sal the Shoemaker,
Joe Fish.
Joe Box, and Little Anthony.
You know, this feels like a Joe Fish job. The School Mistress is the name of the painting. Tony has it up there now. If you're just listening, it's a beautiful classic painting from the 18th century. It's a painting by notable artist. Is it John Opie? 1784 was the estimated date on it. It was taken from the home of Francis Wood, who's 96 years old, stolen in Newark, New Jersey, when Francis Wood was 96, back in 1969. This is an English painting, and it was stolen by New Jersey mobsters more than 50 years ago. That's when the quality mobster work was being done 50 years ago, everybody.
Joe Box and Little Anthony.
Yeah. Earlier this month, there was a ruling that the painting was Wood's rightful property. This is an investigation by the FBI in Salt Lake City. Also detectives from the Metropolitan Police Department in London, because remember, it comes from Britain. Mm-hmm. And it was an honor playing a role in recovering a significant piece of art and culture and reuniting a family with its stolen heritage, said FBI Special Agent Gary France. In a world where criminal investigations often leave scars, it was a rare joy to be a part of a win-win case, a triumph for history, justice, and the Wood family.
Good day, sir.
Yeah.
Thomas says they just don't mob like they used to. No.
There's no quality mobbing going on. You're right about that. Apparently, Opie, one of the most important artists of the period, went on to paint historical scenes, was commissioned to paint portraits of the royal family. One of his paintings was sold at auction for over $500,000. So this is not nobody.
Yeah.
And congratulations on getting that taken care of. I believe with that, hang on a second, because I thought I had one other story. No, I have disorder more than law.
I have one to throw down.
All right.
Alina Habba, the attorney for Donald Trump in the Eugene Carroll case and others. Apparently, according to Newsweek, she may have made up a fake person to push her arguments in the former president's defamation case.
No.
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
Wow.
In a letter today to the judge presiding over the defamation trial, Carroll's attorney, Roberta Kaplan, raised her concerns that Habba used a fake person to promote her accusations that she and the judge had a conflict of interest.
Wow.
Yikes.
There's never been anything like this.
Yeah.
The letter denied the accusations, and Carroll's lead counsel said what she was most concerned about was where Haba received the information of alleged conflict of interest, suggesting that Trump attorney made up a fake source.
Wow. So off-brand for them to just make something up like that. But I guess
pull
they...
it directly out of their rear end, of course. Yeah.
That's pretty wild. Well, to finish law and disorder, and that's certainly well within the law, and there's plenty of disorder there. Republicans are now saying it might be okay to ignore the Supreme Court.
What? What?
Yeah. A consequential development of the Trump era is what increasingly looks like the Republicans are serving up in terms of the rule of law. They don't like it anymore. This is a party that once prided itself in law and order, and being the defenders of law and order, they have now moved into the weaponization of the justice system. We hear a lot about that.
Does that mean we can just pretend that Roe v. Wade was never overturned?
No, that's an interesting way to. Yeah. I have a story about that in a second. I'll give it to you. Some members of the party in recent days have crossed a new threshold by suggesting it's okay to disregard the Supreme Court. After the Supreme Court ruled last week that federal authorities can remove razor wire that Texas put on the U.S.-Mexico border, Representative Chip Roy, he's the congressperson from Texas, Republican, posted on X that Texas should ignore it. Quote, "It's like if someone's breaking into your house and the court says, 'Oh, sorry, you can't defend yourself.' What do you tell the court? You tell the court to go to hell. You defend yourself and then figure it out later." Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt had gone on CNN, indicated that he would be okay with the idea of disregarding the Supreme Court in certain circumstances. "We all agree that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land," he said. "And if the Supreme Court gets something wrong, for example, if they try to ban and say that we didn't have a Second Amendment right to bear arms, I think the Constitution supersedes somebody in Washington, D.C. telling us, So you pick and choose. It's, cafeteria constitution.
So much for the law of the land.
Yeah. The question was whether elected officials should just ignore rulings from the U.S. Supreme Court. And apparently there is increasing feeling in certain quarters. Greg Abbott in Texas, one of the spots, and those other Congress people associated with Texas, but beyond. You see it in the Texas Attorney General, who's under his own investigations. They have to give the feds access to that border, but they are saying now, well, not necessarily. We don't know that we're going to abide by that Supreme Court. Now, right now, they're not in violation of the Supreme Court judgment, but they could be. So it's a very interesting line that they're walking. And the last thing I was going to mention to you, because you mentioned women's reproductive rights, Kim, there is an attempt to block voting. Increasingly what's happening is states are putting it on the ballot, right? They're trying to enshrine, essentially, women's reproductive rights in ballot issues. Or they're trying to eliminate women's reproductive rights through the ballot and by putting it on the ballot. Now, there are attempts to block the voting on this issue. That is to say, not allow it to show up on the ballot. Efforts in Missouri and Mississippi attempting to prevent voters from having a say over abortion rights, building on strategies seen in other states, including Ohio. Democrats and abortion rights advocates say that efforts are evidence that Republican lawmakers and abortion opponents are trying to undercut democratic processes meant to give voters a direct role, informing state laws and rules. They're scared of the people and their voters. Since the U.S. Supreme Court overturned the constitutional right, voters in 7 states have either protected abortion rights or defeated attempts to curtail them in statewide votes. Democrats have pledged to make the issue a central campaign topic this year for races up and down the ballot. And, I've said on this show, since the very start of this issue, since Roe was overturned, that you do need to put it on the ballot in as many states as possible, because that is the power of so many women and defenders of women's rights over their own bodies. That is the power of putting that on the ballot to turn out voters. Obviously, if you're GOP, you don't want to remind women of what's happened under your activist court, and so you don't want it on the ballot. And so there are attempts now to block legislation like this and referendums like this from even existing on the ballot nationwide. So that's to be continued, but that is a massive development, I think, because as I say, I think one of the big ways to turn out the women's vote, when I say women, I don't mean just it's gender specific. I mean everyone who is a defender of the freedoms over their own reproductive rights and privacy. One of the big ways to turn it out is to have it on the ballot. You say it is a states' rights issue, but we know that you're just BSing us. We know you'd really just want to take away women's reproductive rights. Yeah. Anyway, that is the latest effort there, and that is Law and Disorder.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
Without any further delay, I promised it to you. And so
The Mark Thompson Show.
Did legal marijuana help or harm Californians? Interesting story in the Merc the other day. When California's cannabis shops opened their doors 6 years ago this month, they inaugurated the world's largest market for legalized recreational marijuana here in California, right? The idea was that we'd get a flow of money, of tax revenue. And then the other idea was, oh no, with legalization of marijuana in this way, we're going to be a bunch of zombies all high all the time. So what's life like after legalization? There's still a lot we don't know, they say. The state has no good historical data about the number of acres in cultivation, which to me is crazy. Statistics about youth usage are incomplete. No roadside sobriety test for cannabis, and the CHP doesn't track accidents that involve drivers who are high on pot. But the study by the RAND Corporation and Institute of Labor Economics found no relationship between county laws and legally permitting dispensaries and violent crime. So there's no data essentially on even dispensary-related robbery, violent crime, traffic accidents. There's nothing. But the rollout on Prop 64, which was enacted in 2016, implemented in 2018, uneven across the state, allows local controls. More than half of California's cities and counties ban commercial cultivation and sales. There are 695 licenses for storefront retail dispensaries, most in urban hubs like Los Angeles and San Francisco Bay Area. San Francisco had nearly triple the cannabis per capita sales rate compared to Santa Clara County last year. Tax revenues were a major selling point for legal cannabis, as you know. That promise has proven true. Since commercialization, the state has earned more than $5.7 billion in cannabis tax revenue.
What?
A lot of that money goes to running the program. Some of it pays for projects like anti-drug education, child care, environmental cleanup, research. But revenues have fallen really short of projections. Cannabis legalization was promised to generate an estimated $1.4 billion a year in new tax revenue within a few years. It got close. In 2021, we got $1.3 billion. But funds have slumped since, falling to just over $1 billion in 2022 and about the same for 2023. I literally just paid $40 in pot taxes in San Jose 10 minutes ago, says Valiant. Wow. That's crazy. Also, pot prices are down, reducing profits. Since legalization, the average wholesale price for a pound of California cannabis flower has plummeted from $1,600 before it was legal to $643 now. Again, from $1,600 to $643. The demand has stayed steady, but there's just more supply of it. And many communities restrict sales.
Where are my weed smokers at?
For people in the cannabis business, it's been a stressful roller coaster ride, they say. Tons of disruption in the business. So are more people using pot? A major argument against legalization, as you know, was that it could hurt youth by increasing usage. For years, marijuana has been readily available to teens, but commercialization didn't make access easier, according to the California Healthy Kids Survey. Percentage of students in all grades who reported that marijuana was very easy to obtain stayed steady or slightly declined. 44% of youth who use marijuana say they got it from friends. 19% say it was purchased at a dispensary. Available information shows no obvious effect of commercialization on youth cannabis consumption. Are arrests down? Well, in the 60s, selling cannabis was a felony in the same class as heroin, punishable by a 2 to 10 year prison term. But since then, law enforcement became more relaxed, of course. By all measures, legalization has succeeded in ending this costly, ridiculous strategy of arresting people for pot. From 15,000 arrests in 2016 to 6,000 in 2017, just in 1 year. Police now no longer spend time on marijuana arrests and can spend more time solving more dangerous crimes, is the thinking. And are medical emergencies increasing? The state requires that all cannabis goods be sold in child-resistant packaging. It's not child-proof, but it is child-resistant. And try opening it when you're high, everybody. It's not easy. I just can. The answer is poison control calls by adults are increasing, primarily from those using manufactured products like edibles and vapes because of high potency. Up threefold since 1996. Well, that's a long, long time. One of the biggest demographics to call 911 and to end up in the emergency room, those age 65 and older.
You would think that the people that were around in the 60s, they'd be hip to everything, you know?
Yeah. Well, they're hip to it. They're open to it, but they use the edibles and vapes, and I think it's harder to control it, and they get the heart palpitations and rush, and the emergency room visits for those age 65 and over increased by 1,804%. I mean, that's
what?
Yeah, that's insane.
It's like it became legal and everyone just came out of the woodwork and said, all right, it's time for me to try this.
Exactly. And just in that area, is it safer to do edibles than to smoke it? And the answer is, you don't have the negative side effects of smoking if you do edibles, but you don't have the control over the high. It can take you to much higher heights. Weed smoking versus eating. See, Tony has it up there. Passes through the lungs before entering the bloodstream, in the case of smoking. In the case of eating, it passes through the stomach and liver before entering the bloodstream. So that takes longer for it to pass through the liver and bloodstream. Effects kick in after 10 minutes, and the high lasts 2 to 3 hours if you smoke. The effects kick in after 1 hour if you eat. The high lasts 4 to 8 hours. You get less high by smoking, they say, just using the same amount, and more high by eating. Edibles, though, are harder to dose. It is harder to manipulate timing and how high you'll get if you're doing edibles. And so there is a respiratory risk of smoking.
Yeah.
And vapes and all the rest are all part of that. But no matter how you consume cannabis, it carries long and short-term risks. It can increase your heart rate and blood pressure. Daily use is linked to a higher risk of heart failure. The drug also takes its toll on cognition. As we know, cognition is a ding word. And users may struggle with concentration and memory even when the high wears off. So be careful. Edibles are risky, says James Watson. James Watson says, I've known veteran smokers who got way overdosed on a single edible. The potency is not well regulated regardless of what the package says. Well, it's also not even a question of the potency or the amount. With edibles, it's a question of what's in your stomach, what it's, how your system is processing it. Approach edibles with caution. You could smoke a joint with friends. Now you can take one hit. Why so supersonic? They took the sociability out of it. Yeah, water it down. It's too strong. My God. Well, there you go. That's a little bit of the breakdown on pot in California.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I didn't know about the heart risk. I think a doctor told me last week or 2 weeks ago that, as long as you're not going overboard on it, it's okay. But don't go overboard on it. So, tomorrow, I've got a very big show. Tomorrow, I've got a Pulitzer Prize winner, Michael Hiltzik, coming through. I want to talk to him a little bit about the bipartisan deal at the border. I also want to talk to him about the politics in California. He's a business writer for the LA Times, and mostly I want to talk to him about what's happening at the LA Times and about journalism around America and around the world, for that matter. It's always been a dangerous profession, but more dangerous than ever. And as I say, journalism is going away. Print journalism and a lot of the hard work that's done by print journalists is no longer supported by these news organizations, LA Times, Washington Post. I mean, these are big brands that are cutting back in a big way. So Hiltzik, who has succeeded as a journalist and as a writer, as I say, is a Pulitzer Prize winner, he'll weigh in on that tomorrow. John Rothman will be here tomorrow as well. So looking forward to talking to John about any number of things. And I do want to touch on the Middle East as well and what's going on there, and might that turn into a broader conflict. How about a big shout out to Kelly Malloy? Thank you for a 2-spot.
Big shout out.
Mm-hmm. And a Jim Slayton super sticker for $5. What up, Jim Slayton?
Big shout out.
Big shout out. Spencer Jaffley with a $5 spot.
Big shout out.
Thank you, Spencer. And this is, again, thank you for the $10 super chat that was answered earlier.
Big shout out.
Nancy Benoit for the 5 spot.
Big shout out.
I love it. A lot of small donor money coming in. Yes. Love it. In the days to come, I will update our meet and greet. Honestly, I have to get a few particulars together. I want to do a game night on our meet and greet. Also, as you know, we're closing in on 20,000 subscribers, so we want to do something for that. And I'm just a little overwhelmed at the moment. So working on those events and those celebrations. So appreciate your patience in that regard. So all of that is still in the works.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I don't know what to say, Tony. I mention you because Wes, how about a super sticker from Wes for $5? How about a Wes?
Big shout out.
Big shout out. This is an interesting comment. Phineas says, I almost got killed because a friend had a chocolate edible in their fridge, and I took a bite thinking it was just chocolate and started driving. Within 30 minutes, I couldn't feel my feet and almost crashed. Wow. I got a hold of some pot Christmas cookies a long time ago, and I didn't know they were pot Christmas cookies. And I love Christmas cookies, who doesn't? And I inhaled about 6 of them. And I thought also I was losing my mind. Yeah, the tiles on the floor started like, it was really intense.
God,
man.
are you sure?
You don't know what it is. Yeah, it's
the joke always like I overdosed on edibles. It's like, okay, go outside, hang on to the grass, and try not to fall off the earth, right?
All right, everybody.
Bye-bye.
After Party Live going down now. Till tomorrow. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.